Evening once again. Been listening to a very rocking discussion going on and a lot of controversial, perhaps important points. And I just enjoyed the discussion and great presentation so far. So coming to the next case by Dr. Manish Bajpai. So Dr. Bajpai is a graduate from Kasturba Bapai, I'm so sorry, is from Kasturba Medical College, Manipal, and he did his DNB and fellowship from Shankar Netralia. And he was also awarded the Best Outgoing Student Award from DNB. So we have a lot of luminaries and achievers here amongst our presenters. He did his observership in uveitis with Dr. JB at Shankar Netralia, and also he did multiple surgical advanced courses, both at the European Vitreoretinal Training in Germany. He also did a postgraduate certification in business management at the prestigious XLRI in Jamshedpur. So he manages at his center the vitreoretinal, uvea, neuroophthalmology, as well as trauma, LASIK, and cataract. So practically most of it. And the most important part that I felt was extremely interesting to know is that he has invented something called the claw. So the claw is not some monstrous thing, but it's a novel foreign body removal forceps, which was used extensively during the riots in 2016 in Kashmir. And this was used to remove the non-magnetic pellets from the eye. So it's very intriguing to read about that. And also his another innovation has received the All India S. Natarajan Award last year. So I welcome Dr. Manish Bapai to give his case presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Somshila. I think Dr. Manish's innovation was presented in AIS Indore. So it's a proud moment for myself and Dr. Rajiv Chaudhary.
And he also won the Think Under
Award.
the Apple Tree Award.
Yeah, he won the Think Under the Apple Tree.
Manish.
Very innovative guy.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for a kind introduction. I hope everybody can see my slides and hear me well.
Yes.
So at the outset, I would like to thank AIS Scientific Committee and Dr. Partha Biswas for giving me this opportunity. My job is relatively easier because I'll be talking about large hemorrhage at the macula in patients who are undergoing cataract surgery. So I'll start with few cases. The first case is a 67-year-old male patient who came with history of sudden loss of vision of few days duration, and this was his fundus picture. He had a large submacular hemorrhage under the macula, and he underwent TPA with Avastin and C3-F8 gas in the vitreous cavity. And after 2 or 3 injections, this was his fundus picture, and his OCT looks very good. There is only a small pocket of fluid under the fovea. The patient had good visual acuity. Here we can see that the media is little hazy because of cataract, and the proper fundus examination instead of directly going for cataract surgery helped in diagnosis. The second patient was a very interesting case. This is a very old case. This was prior to I acquired my OCT or started doing anti-VEGF in 2006. She had she had very poor vision, hand movements, and the other eye fundus was normal at the point of presentation. On slit lamp, she had very dense cataract, and here we can see that the cataract, there was some lesion which was there at the macula, which was fairly large, and in the ultrasound associated, we can see that there is a elevated lesion at the macula. So we explained guarded prognosis to this patient, and the patient underwent uneventful phacoemulsification with clear understanding that the vision will not improve and she will have central scotoma. 1 month post-operatively, she was treated with IVTA, and this was her, the picture on the right is her final picture. She still had 1 meter vision post-operatively, 1.5 meters post-operatively, and as expected, the visual prognosis was not very good, but we could tell her that because of the ultrasound in this particular case. The third patient was advised cataract surgery elsewhere and had come for second opinion. He had poor vision in the left eye, but right eye had good vision. It was 6/9 parts. He had cataractous changes, early cataractous changes in both eyes, but there was a large macular hemorrhage. As we can see, there is a macular hemorrhage which is there in all the retinal layers. The differential diagnosis was macroaneurysm. Here we can see a lesion, and or IPCV. He was advised again intravitreal injection of TPA with TPA with Avastin and gas, but the patient refused because of economical problems, and he instead opted for anti-VEGF monotherapy. This was how the picture evolved over a period of 3 injections, and then looking at the retrospectively, it looks more like a macroaneurysm. Here we can see a macular vein being blocked, and there is a lesion on top of that, and the picture really improved. So it is not only AMD which can present with large macular hemorrhage. There can be other pathologies which can also present. We have to keep that in mind. This was another young male. He did not have any cataract, but he had aplastic anemia, and we can see these large Roth spots and subhyaloid hemorrhages in various places. And just with systemic therapy over a period of 3 to 4 months, his clinical picture improved, and he had very small macular hemorrhage. His visual acuity also improved quite well. This on the left is the picture of peripapillary CNVM with macular hemorrhage, while on the right there is a Valsalva retinopathy. Again, these are large macular hemorrhages. They are not necessarily AMD. They can be present in other pathologies. So other pathologies can also present with large macular hemorrhage, and we have to keep that in mind as well. So this was a high myopic patient who was prior to injection. Here we can see directly under microscope, we can appreciate large macular hemorrhage as can be seen. And so if you're taking a high myopic patient for a cataract surgery without looking at his fundus, you see this, it's going to scare you because it's not the cataract which is blocking his vision. Another very important fact is nowadays we see the biometers, optical biometers like IL Master 700 come with SSOCT, and they give us a picture of macula which is there in their one of the frames. And surgeon, cataract surgeon, even if he is not doing OCT as we have been discussing throughout this webinar, even if he is not doing his OCT regularly, this is something that he needs to look at very carefully. So this is on the left extreme is the normal picture, normal macula that he should be seeing, while the other 3 are pathologies like macular hole, or there is a PD, or there is a pocket of fluid. So if you see this, at least if you see this, please then dilate the patient, look at his macula, and do OCT directly before taking the cataract taking him up for cataract surgery. This is a patient with large retinal hemorrhage, and the point that I want to make is if you're doing cataract surgery in these patients, you do not have any red reflex in case of large hemorrhages on the retina. Here, while doing rhexis, even while cracking the nucleus or removing the last piece, we have no red reflex there. And in such a case, you are likely to catch the capsule and have dehiscence. So if you are, this is a combined case where we can see there is a large retinal hemorrhage in case of a PDR. So this was all was anticipated, but then if you are not seeing a red reflex after intraoperatively, there is something wrong going on there, and it's not plain cataract surgery. So coming to cataract surgery in AMD patient, most of the things have been discussed. So whether some of the thought processes are that probably there are increase in inflammatory markers like VEGF and exposure to UV light, which causes progression of AMD. Whether it is true, it's a very controversial topic. Mostly not, but then there is probably higher incidence of post-op CME in these patients. So how do we cover these patients who are having AMD, who are undergoing cataract surgery? We have to cover them with topical steroids for in perioperative period, or probably for a slightly longer period of time, because they are likely to have post-op CME, if not progression of their AMD directly. If there is a AMD, we can think of giving anti-VEGF 1 to 2 weeks prior to cataract surgery, of course, after explaining the guarded visual prognosis, and second dose 1 month after previous dose. If you are following PRN protocol for treating patients with anti-VEGF, have a sufficient exudation-free period prior to cataract surgery, and follow the patient up closely should the membrane come back. If you are following treat and extend protocols, then closer follow-ups with monthly injections in post-op periods before then you again start extending. So you collapse your follow-ups, and then again you can start extending in post-op period. So take home messages, detailed fundus examination, there is no substitute to it. Prior to cataract surgery is a must. Correlate visual acuity and grade of cataract. Look at the status of the other eye. The modern optical biometers will give you information about the macula. Look at that picture before just looking at the power of the IOL that you are going to put. Ultrasound is a useful tool in large macular lesions when there is a total cataract or you have very poor view. Premacular hemorrhage may be caused by other pathologies, not just AMD. So, after the webinar, I would like everybody to remember that there are other pathologies which can cause large macular hemorrhage, and management of retinal pathology should precede cataract surgery. And we have to give guarded prognosis before doing cataract surgery. So even if you're doing wonderful cataract surgery, patient may not be able to see well to their satisfaction, and we have to explain it preoperatively. So to have happy patient, or at least not unhappy patient, and protect ourselves medico-legally. Thank you for your kind attention.
Fantastic, Manish. Fantastic. Excellent presentation. And I think your take-home messages are absolute pearls. So the most important thing that was, apart from the other presentations and take-home messages that we already had, is the importance of immediately referring a large macular hemorrhage to the vitreoretina surgeon. And it is his domain and absolutely not the cataract surgeon's domain at all. So immediate referring, the ultrasound, which you very well stressed, the ultrasound at times for a cataract surgeon is being done by technicians also. So this should not be the right approach, because the ultrasound can actually take up the macular part, as well as if there's a macular swelling and a possibility of macular pathology, as well as the optic disc also. The cup disc can also come up during a good ultrasound, and it needs a good ultrasoundologist to do it, which of course is the cataract surgeon can do it himself, or a VR surgeon can do it himself. So having said this, let's go to our discussants, Mallika and Dr. Hemant Murthy. Sir, for your comments, please.
Yeah, an excellent talk. I think he has stressed everything very rightly. I would say that he has covered what is very important, that is the preoperative assessment with an indirect ophthalmoscope. Try to see the fundus. If it's not possible, are you sure that the cataract, the vision loss is commensurate with the cataract? First, you have to make out that. I was checking the other eye is very good point that he made. The use of preoperative investigations like OCT and ultrasound helps you a lot. I do my ultrasounds, and I find that you can at most times tell the patient what's going wrong in the retina. So if the media is so hazy that you cannot do an OCT, then ultrasound should help you out in these cases. And also one should remember that all hemorrhages are not due to AMD. So there are various retinal pathologies that you should remember that would cause a problem. And these should be investigated by the retinal surgeons, as you rightly said, and we should go forward with that. Ultimately, patients, it should be for the patient's benefit that we should all work towards as a team. I think we need not be in our own domains. Retinal and cataract surgeons now should be part together. Only then we get good vision.
Absolutely.
And the other point that I wanted to ask, the interval after cataract surgery, Manish, would you wait for 1 month? Is it, you could give it even earlier, because nowadays you do so wonderful cataract surgery that your wounds are so stable that you can do a PRP after 2 weeks.
So this patient was 2006. This was
No,
this was very old.
Not for that patient, but I think
now I would probably treat it much earlier than a month. Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
Mallika?
Yeah, actually, I'm not the discussant for this talk. So I'm the discussant for the next one. But I think nothing more to add. Already very well described by Dr. Bapai and then Dr. Murthy.
Can I add one thing, Pata?
Yes, please.
No, you're talking, Manish. I think a lovely presentation, Manish. I just want to, when you have a vitreous hemorrhage and you're finding it difficult because you don't have the red glow, what I would suggest is there are two stages wherein your red glow is very necessary, not during the nucleus removal, during the capsulorhexis and during the cortical aspiration. These two times you need the red glow much more. So what I would suggest is put on the oblique illumination or ask your assistant to hold the endo illuminator. So you will have much better view. That's what I do. When I have a vitreous hemorrhage, when I don't have a good red glow, then I ask, I put the oblique illumination on the microscope, or otherwise more effectively, just ask your assistant to hold the endo illuminator only during these two stages, during the cortical aspiration and during the capsular excess.
I think now Shop has got a
Dr. Mohan, instead of an endo illuminator, if the
You can
surgeon doesn't have an endo
chandelier.
illuminator, LED torch, would it work? Would it help?
Can I
A
add
powerful
something?
LED torch.
LED will not have that focus, no, like the endo illuminator.
Can I
It's
add
kind of
something
cataract
to
surgery.
this?
It is
Can I add
described to put
something?
in a chandelier, put in a
Chandelier
chandelier.
we
A
can
cataract surgeon won't have an endo
Okay.
illuminator, he won't have a chandelier.
No.
Cataract
Can I
surgeon
add
won't have access
something?
to this.
Amit, can I add something?
Yes.
Why not do it in a 2-stage? Remove the nucleus, do the vitrectomy. You have the good red glow. Remove the remaining cortical and put the intraocular lens.
That's what many Americans do. But in a combined surgery, I tell the cataract surgeon, do everything and get out. And I
Same thing I do.
all my
So,
cataract surgeons are
what-
trained to do. Whether they have
That will be
Goa
much helpful.
lens and-
You will be more safe. You can preserve, because the most important point is to preserve the posterior capsule. So if you have the good red glow, you can put the intraocular lens later on once the
Sir.
vitrectomy has been done.
Any
So the
other
point
jugaad
is-
if you don't have a chandelier or an endo illuminator?
No, but with the chandelier, if vitreous hemorrhage is there, you will not get the good red glow until vitreous is not cleared.
No, now suppose like what
Chandelier,
Rajat said.
no, not chandelier or the endo illuminator work very
Manish wants to say something.
Yeah, Manish.
Yes,
Yeah,
Manish.
one point in either of these cases, at least keep a 3-piece lens ready when you know.
Absolutely.
So make sure that your anterior vitrectomy is working well and keep a 3-piece lens ready.
Every
So-
combined case with a VR surgeon, I always keep a 3-piece ready. I am sorry to say, I don't know PC को कहाँ छुआ है VR surgeon ने हमको नहीं मालूम. So it
Correct.
is
No,
a
no,
habit.
no. If you are doing cataract as a prior, for media
Yeah,
clarity, so that you are doing, or as a combined surgery, it's good idea to have a 3-piece lens ready so you can put it in sulcus.
So in a combined surgery, sir, you can just put a chandelier, like make one port, put a chandelier, let the cataract surgeon do his job, and then continue with the VR surgery.
That's true.
Very true.
That's very true. I think